All right, Jim, let's get another question here. This one was sent via email to cornydrivethrough at gmail.com. Boy, this is a long one. Sent
Uh-oh.
by Seth from Long Island. I've heard of the 7-year rule, which was coined by Jim himself. The premise of this rule is that after 7 years, it is acceptable to reuse gimmicks or storylines due to there having been a turnover in the fan base by that time. Is that the correct way to put it, Jim?
Kind of, and I think I was somewhat being facetious when I said that. 7 years, it doesn't have to be that long. It could be quicker, it could be longer, depends on who did it first and how well they did it. But there is some element of turnover and at least some dimming of memory. So even in the same place, you can repeat stuff after it's been a while, and it might have a chance of flying.
I guess he wants to know his opinion about that. He has an article he attached here. I asked this question because in the era of streaming and social media, where it's easier than ever to search for different wrestling clips at the drop of a hat with YouTube, Netflix, Peacock, etc., it seems easier to have some fans go, oh, hey, this reminds me of such and such, complete with a clip of it, even though newer viewers would have never seen that story or angle when it initially took place. As a viewer of NXT, one specific example for me is whenever I see people say, oh, this is Shawn Michaels using his greatest hits for a moment or story, even though the moments in question, the barbershop window, lost my smile, etc., were well over the 7-year rule. Shawn himself even addressed that at the NXT press conference 2 years ago. Here's a quote. Some of them, clearly, complete ripoff. We're using them because we thought they were good. Nothing thrills me more than that. This stuff is 30 years old and people go, oh, it's the same. I'm fortunate that we have a fan base that remembers that far, but we're also appealing to a whole new fan base. They're still moving. They're still impactful. They're still memorable storylines. Well, I'll end it there because he goes on a little bit more and he has another article here. But again, what is it like now? When you first said that, I think it probably was in the 90s, which was a different
Oh no, it
universe.
was more recent than that, but it was still quite a while back. But that's a with national television, that was the first problem with trying to do angles that have been done other places because again in the territory days it was regional television and the wrestling business was built on top stars going from territory to territory. And when they would get to a new territory, they would be working, if they were a main event guy, they'd be working with the new booker. They'd want to draw money. They'd say, hey, I did this angle with so and so in Portland. It could work here in Charlotte. Or, hey, Wahoo McDaniel was great for recommending guys he had worked with to come in and do something with him or other. That's how Wahoo recommended Ric Flair to George Scott in the Carolinas. But Wahoo and Valentine would go from place to place and do their shit because the people had not seen it in a new territory. It had been regional television. So those angles amongst the same people done the same way could still make money in a variety of places. Now, when you get national television, that has somewhat changed, but you can also do angles that have been done previously that work, but with new little twists to tailor them to the guys that are doing it. You don't have to cut the promo the exact same way if you get the point across. You don't have to do the physicality the exact same way if the main focus of the angle, the injury angle, with it Pillmanizing the leg on the chair or hanging somebody from the neck with a goddamn cable or whatever is there. It can be gone into or it can be fleshed out in a different fashion. But you still, there's only so many things that the human being can do to another human being and then put it in the context of wrestling. It makes it even harder. That's why so many times you see angles that aren't in the context of wrestling and people just go bullshit and tune it out of hand, except for the ironic wrestling crowd. but there's still plenty of old deals that you can tweak and that you can. And like Dusty said one time, he gave me a finish in Greensboro for the Midnight Express to work with, I think it was the Road Warriors. And I said, but we just did that finish last month with the Rock and Roll Express. He said, they won't notice, kid. It's different people. Well, they would have kind of noticed because this was a fluke finish. But if you do the same concept of something, but it's done by different people in a different building that each have their personal spin to put on the main point, you can still disguise it and use the flavor of what was done before. You don't have to be in the Georgia TV studio for the babyface to say, how did you know I had 4 flat tires? Or whatever the fuck.
Although,
I'm sorry I was long-winded
although
there.
certain things work better in the studio setting just because of the close proximity of the fans and the reaction you would get.
Well, yes, but I was just being, I was being a smart aleck. But, there's all kinds of different ways that you can come to the punchline when you're telling a story.